Okay, so I just sent reminders. We're waiting for people to join. So we'll give them like 5 minutes.
Hello, you're muted. Don't worry if you're speaking.
No, I wasn't speaking.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here again. Um, because this event is recorded, we will proceed regardless of who is online and who is not, because some people are eventually going to listen to us. If you are not speaking, please mute yourself. Some people are going to be listening to us 2 months, 3 months, 1 week, 1 day down the line. Therefore, we are not going to hesitate to get on with this program. We set this meeting up to establish that there is opportunity outside of the popular places people love to go. And one of the places where people often ignore in terms of postgraduate studies is the People's Republic of China. And I say this as someone who has attended the HSK program myself in Lagos, Nigeria. So as an alumnus of the Confucius Institute, I can tell you for free so many opportunities that have become available to myself, even though I didn't get to it early enough by attending the Confucius Institute. How much more if you're able to find your way to the bigger playing ground, which is China. So whether it's whatever you really are studying, especially when it comes to STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, China is the challenging superpower now. And now that America has closed their doors, China is the equivalent of Germany and America and maybe the whole of the EU rolled together in one. So I have brought a gentleman, Mr. Solarin Adeniyi, to enlighten us. He will be speaking for the better part of 20 minutes, and then we'll proceed to questions and answers. If you have anybody, any young person who's just graduating that you think they should be on this call, please get them in now. Let them listen to him so that by the time it is time to ask questions, they'll be able to ask productive questions. Anybody, any young person that needs to be on this call, please get them on board. Mr. Sholari, it's a pleasure to have you, and it's over to you from here.
Okay, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure being here too, to just give what I think about the opportunities in China from my own perspective, because it's also important to note that different people have different perspectives. Like students will have a different perspective. Someone that is working has a different perspective. Someone that is doing business has a different perspective. Your financial level will change your view on things. So this is my own perspective, and I'm just here to share with everyone here things you probably would not find on the internet. And I mean, for the most part of the first part of this conversation might be something you might find on the internet. Very easy to find that China is a technologically advanced country. It's an amazing country. I mean, the part of the internet that is not masked with propaganda, because I think generally that the view of China from, let's say, the Western perspective, or at least what the Western world wants you to see, is not necessarily the reality. And when we talk about, let's say, the Uyghur case, like them saying that here that you cannot do this, you cannot do that. So I don't think it's not that I don't think it is actually not as deep as it's painted. So generally today I would be talking on moving to China, the opportunities, the risks that is involved, and just how to go about it. Specifically, I'll talk about work, I'll talk about business, and I'll talk about study. So I believe everyone here should or would fall into one of this category. And if you're aiming to, move to China, this would be part of the things that will be on your mind. So, first of all, generally, an overview of China. China is, I think, the most populated country in the world. GDP is only, like, in terms of advancements, GDP, everything is only next to the United States. And considering the move, like the way the US has been moving everywhere, we watch the news more often, they're kind of closing their doors. And China is responding by opening theirs. And, this makes China the next best thing. And in my own personal opinion, China was always the best thing, but like I said, different perspectives. So life generally in China, I think China is one of the best places that you could be as a young person, as a person that is trying to figure out life, and also as a person that has figured it out and trying to expand, because there's really everything you need. The people in China, Chinese people generally, they are like, it's a mixed feeling. Some are warm, some are cold, and I think that's just how it is everywhere else in the world. I think Chinese people are more accommodating. They tend to bear with you, and personally, I also think that people don't actually have to like you to bear with you. That is the reality of life. So generally, Chinese people are actually nice people. Racism. I also don't think there's anywhere else. I mean, there's not anywhere else that is not Africa that, let's say, Black people don't experience that. So I think, but on a general note, here it is not as prominent, except for on the internet. Like if you're on the Chinese apps, maybe you can get a lot of that. But like in real life, it's usually to the minimal, and it's usually negligible stuff that would not affect like your general view. Now, speaking into the points, like I said, specifically talking about the points from a business point of view. Now, let me start with business. When we talk about business in the world today, I think China is where you need to be. China is where you start. China is where I think you should also end, because they control virtually everything. Here they produce virtually anything you can think of. Even things that you think that they are particular to, let's say, a certain group of people. Maybe it's a form of dressing, a form of dress, whatever it is. China produces literally everything, and the opportunities here is quite limitless. The pricing, because when there's a lot of people that are producing same quality, same stuff, the approach that China uses is pricing. The next person is trying to beat the next person. They're trying to get more customers. So pricing here is literally, you can get whatever you can afford. Meaning you can get anything at any price that you can afford it. Now, there might be quality deficits, there might be, I mean, it depends on how much you have. Literally, you can start business with literally any amount. Like you can start any business you can think of with any amount you have. That is how much China has made it easy to do business. And like most of us might have noticed too, when we talk about like the cars, the Chinese EVs, that is also a business venture. And like I said from the beginning of this, like when you look at China objectively and not from a lens of propaganda or people trying to make it seem like whatever is coming from China is not up to par, then you would actually see that most of that is just not, it's not the reality. It doesn't express the reality. China is literally gets what you can afford, meaning most of the quality issues that we have, maybe not all, but some of the quality issues we have is actually our own people that are just paying for what they can afford, and overall the domino effect. And that's a little overview on business. Now, in terms of work, now from a like I said from the start, from my own perspective, work in China is no. First of all, it depends on what you classify as work as a person. If you're trying to let's say professional work, like you're talking medicine, you're talking engineering, you're talking any of that. Now, because of China's high population, there is this tendency to only employ, like if you're talking of professional fields, they only try to, except you're extraordinary, they probably have someone that can fit that role. Now, is that to say that there is no opportunity in terms of work? Definitely not. There are actually roles that are quite dependent on immigrants, like people that are not necessarily Chinese. And I would recommend that should be like areas that you would focus on, that it makes it easier. However, there's still roles in terms of engineering, there's the international environment, and we're talking about professional roles. But genuinely, that is not easy, because as much as I say that Chinese people are welcoming, there's still this direction of Chinese people first. Meaning, if a company is employing 10 people now, they are mostly they are like fundamentally they intend for those 10 people to be Chinese. Now, if you're extraordinary, and basically you can speak the language, which is a vital aspect, and I want everybody to note that if you're looking to work in China, you're looking to do a professional role, you have to be very good at what you do, and you also have to have understanding on the tradition, and the language. That is an essence, because China is not a country that speaks English as their first language. Yeah, a lot of people speak English, but if you're looking for a population of Chinese that speak more English, you look maybe at Hong Kong or Singapore. But mainland China is mostly Chinese. So this aspect affects their demand in terms of like how open they will be to you. And I think that's also a general point of view, like you'd be more open to people that speak your own language. Now, to education, I think in most countries, even in the EU and the Western world, education is usually the means to at least get into those countries. China has made that very easy. If you want to start, if you're still doing bachelors, I'm assuming that most people here aren't, but if it's bachelors now, up until recently, you did not need to write any other exam. You just need the WIEC, like a high school living certificate and some other documents to be able to come to China. And it was more straightforward. But up until recently, they are trying to control the quality of their education. So if you're doing bachelors, you probably have to write another exam. And the school fees ranges now over the school fees range in China has actually not increased. I've never heard of the school fees increasing. It's usually static. However, the fluctuating exchange rate in Nigeria has been what made school fees more expensive here in China. China has always been a better alternative, and it's still a better alternative to most. In fact, I don't think there's any other developed country that the school fees they pay is lesser than what is paid here in China. However, that also depends on the level of the school, the city the school is at, and a couple of other factors. But generally, school fees in China for bachelors is the cheapest you can see anywhere. Now, for masters, masters in China is definitely more expensive than the bachelor's degree, but most masters and PhD they come with they come with scholarships and stipends. So that like the chances of you getting a master's degree when you already have your bachelor's is very easy. You know the right things, or you know the right people to walk through the process with. And I would always recommend that you should at least do one of those degrees in China, master's or PhD, because then it opens your horizon. Like you look at the world from a different lens, while you're also, getting new knowledge at next to nothing, because if you're on scholarship, you're probably getting stipends. So I think the China also does that too, because it's a way of China opening to the world, allowing more international people to, come into China, experience what China is really about, while gathering knowledge from here. So this is just a general overview of these aspects, and I just want this to be more of an interactive session. Like it should be, so that we can actually attack perspectives and questions that are specific to individuals, rather than just a general overview like I just gave. So the bottom line and the final point I would like to make is China is the next best thing. It's somewhere that I would recommend. I have been here for long enough to know that, and whatever questions that you might have, whatever thing that you might have read, and I'm just here to, offer a different perspective, a perspective that is not necessarily what you might come across on the internet or social media or anywhere else. I'm just offering a perspective from someone that is actually on ground, someone that has been on ground for quite a while, and someone that understands how it works. So thank you. And right now I would want us to ask questions.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Solarin, for that beautiful intro. Okay, and it seems we have a question already. Mr. Kazim, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question, sir.
Okay, before we go ahead with the questions, I'd like us to remember that this is a Rainyday Cooperative Society event. If you would like to continue to be aware of this kind of events, please drop your email in the chat box. If you are going to ask a question, do well to also drop your email in the chat box. We are a productivity, we are an investment cooperative society, we are a community where we pursue advancement for each and every one of us. As I speak with you, I just got back from our cashew plantation project in Ogbomoso. I am in Ogbomoso at the moment, and so it's part of our commitment to elevate the quality of life of our members that we have put together a weekly question and answer session on this. And if you'd like to be a member of Rainyday Cooperative Society, you can join through any of our programs, especially the cashew investment program, which has a spread opportunity to invest over to up to 12 months. If you're investing at once, whether you're buying an acre or 10 or 100 acres, there is a bit of a discount. And that's because we are putting our money where our mouth is, and then increasing our ability to earn more, to go global, to spread our tentacles. If you'd like to ask a question, ensure that you are in a quiet place and make your question concise and meaningful. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing your questions.
Hello, good evening. Okay, I hope I'm heard. So thank you for this program. I saw it and I joined not to be able to pick one or two things and also share perspective. Number one, some of my experience in China physically, because I've been to China a couple of times, and so part of what I wanted to pick is number one. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, number one is I was thinking that I was going to be able to pick the scholarship opportunity.
No, sir, I can't hear anything yet. I can't hear anything.
Then maybe you need to change your network. I can hear very well, and I think the anchor can change. So please mute yourself while you sort your network out. Mr. Kazim, please proceed.
Okay, steady. Number one, I'm not sure. So I probably was also looking at the scholarship opportunity. I know one of my conversation with one or two people, the program I went for, speaking about that they start scholarship in China and the process and all that. So I was thinking that I can pick number one. Number two, I also knew that real estate in China is really, really, way expensive and all that. So I don't know if you can also share some light about that versus what you have always known. Yeah, truly, I know there's a lot of opportunity, just like you have said, based on my own fiscal experience. But I just want to, still my question on these 2 points. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. So let me start with the scholarship aspect of things. And
Yeah.
yeah, can you hear me? Like I mentioned earlier, specifically masters, that does not mean that there are no scholarships for bachelor's degree, but like I said, from the general perspective, there is a very high chance that you would get scholarships for masters and PhD, because most of those scholarships, they are government backed, they are not as competitive, and that's just like if you're trying to do masters in China now, there really, you are not really thinking of trying to pay school fees. Now, in terms of the timing, that's just what's essential in applying for masters with scholarships, because there's also limited seats, and most of the scholarship opportunities are usually for the first year. Most of the masters in China are usually between 2 to 3 years, then the PhDs range up to 5 years. Now, the scholarship opportunities is usually dependent on your score, your grade, like your scores from your transcripts. If the school is willing to accept based on interviews, like I said, for bachelors now, you have to write an exam, but master's PhD, you only need to do interviews, and that is not for all schools, just for a couple of schools. And the scholarships usually come with stipends, but then that is also dependent on how early you apply, your grades, and how good the interview goes. Those are the fundamentals for getting the score, because the way the grading is either you get the masters with stipends, scholarship for masters with stipends, or you get only scholarship. Then the next is half scholarship. The next is you don't get scholarship at all. So what is essential for if you're aiming to get the scholarship with stipend is applying early. For March intake now, I mean it's March already. Like if you are trying to apply for March of this year now, there's a very low chance that you get the scholarship. But if you're trying to apply for, let's say, September of 2020 of this year, and you apply now, or at least apply before March, that increases your chances.
Mr. Solarin, please tell them they need to apply now if you want to get it in by September. Don't even try to be
Okay.
nice about it.
Okay. Okay. Actually, let me just be giving it as it is. Don't let me be diplomatic. The truth is, if you are trying to apply for September, you're supposed to have started your application by November, December of last year. Now, if it's still something that is on your mind by now, because January is over, if you're trying to get scholarship or scholarship is stipend, which scholarship is stipend is definitely what everybody would want, and that's something I would recommend, because even if the stipend is not so much, that's going to offset your let's say your everyday expense in the very least. And those scholarships, like accommodation, some schools actually come with accommodation, while some you have to pay for your accommodation by yourself. But then a lot of the times the amount they are giving you for stipend is probably going to be enough to cover for your accommodation. So you just need to worry about your personal upkeep. So if you're trying to come in for September of 2026, you actually need to start applying now. As for the documents, I can just list what you might need, just for anybody that is that is trying to do it like right now, you're going to need. I mean, you could also contact the organizers of this to get more details. But just like at the top
Okay,
of my head.
let's hold on, please. Let's make it easy. Drop your WhatsApp number in the comment in the chat box so that they can reach you directly. And because I mean, we don't have the ability to be able to funnel people back to you and all that. We like to keep it direct because that's the whole point of this program. So please type your WhatsApp number in the chat box, or our executive assistants can do that if you're a bit confused, you're a bit challenged with that. Omar, please copy his WhatsApp number and drop it in the chat box. Anybody that wants
I'll
to
do
talk
that now.
yeah,
Oh,
and you can send your email to him via WhatsApp, so you can post it in the chat box also. So if you are looking to engage him for anything China admissions, please go ahead, make your inquiries, ensure that it makes sense for you, and you're free to make your decisions. We would rather not be involved in that hand holding and all those things. I already have enough things to think of as it is, and exactly. So his number is in the comment box already. His Chinese number, and that's
The number,
what
the number just flashed. I couldn't see it again. Good evening, sir.
the number
Yes, the
does
number
what?
is there.
The number flashed away. I couldn't see it. It just disappeared.
Just
It's
click
here. I
it.
don't know what. Say, hold on, please. I think you should check your device very well. I can see the number here. You should open your comment box and read, please. Open the comment box. Thank you.
I'm not too familiar with the app, but how do I see it?
Look on your interface and look for the options where you can ask a question, like type a chat, then drop it there.
I'll forward it to him. I'll forward the number to you. Register. Hold on. I'll forward the number to you.
Okay, so as I was saying, you can just text me directly. I will give you the list of documents that you need, and like I said, if the aim is to get scholarship, which I would recommend, because the school fees for masters is usually around 50 to 100,000 RMB, and that's like 10 million up. So I would definitely recommend that you apply early and get the scholarships. And like I said, scholarships, if you apply early enough and your grades are good and you do well in the interview, there's a high chance you will get the scholarship with the stipend. And the stipend should be enough for your accommodation and sometimes even also enough for the monthly expense. And if you are doing PhD usually comes with grants. So that is also a good opportunity. Like if you're for your research, there are usually research grants. And for PhD, some of the time they need you to actually get a supervisor before you finish your application. That's a way to ensure that you don't just apply and maybe there's no supervisor that's trying to take on your the topic you want to research on. And just to also point this out, masters in China is you're going to do classwork and you're going to do thesis. Like it's usually a combination of both. I don't know of any masters that you're not going to do any of that. Even in the medical field, you're going to do classwork for at least the first semester before you go to the hospital. So, because I think some people used to want masters that is maybe just thesis or maybe just schoolwork, is usually a combination of both. Now, the second question about real estate, I don't really understand how to answer that question. Real estate in China is sometimes I just don't get it. Real estate in China, I think, is an oversaturated market. I think it's partly controlled by the government. Like you can't just wake up and build somewhere, as with most developed countries, I think. Expensive in big cities, cheaper in smaller cities. Can you get houses as foreigners? Yes, you can actually buy apartments. Rents. What about rents? Rent is definitely it's just the same. I just think it's just the way it meets the eye. It's expensive in big cities, cheaper in smaller cities, more expensive in city centers. less expensive on outskirts. So I don't really get. I don't know how to answer the question. Are you looking at it from a investment perspective, or looking at it from a rent perspective, or like, can you expatiate more on that, please?
Okay, thank you. So much for the answer. I don't know why I'm also not in the comment section. I'm unable to see your number, but I'm sure I can talk to you. Organize that, they can give me your number later. So what I meant by real estate is that, I mean, for some of the people, every time I visit, some of the people or those that are even, working very hard, citizens are saying that, I mean, essentially, you need to be able to, to earn a lot to be able to own something here. And these are top people too. I mean, within working with, well-known organizations. And yet they'll tell me that only people with Huawei and the biggest of the company probably can afford something a little. And first, if you want to go into, thin into the bush, or how do I say it now, the rural area. But when it comes to the cities, Shenzhen, where you do business, Guangzhou, and a couple of other places, some of these districts, I mean, you have it very, very expensive. So if somebody wants to relocate, for example, and this is the income is not in tandem, or it does not align completely to the cost of living. For example, UK now, it's regulated in UK. Once you earn, at least can give you apartment, maybe you can take a little one and all that. But there, it's not regulated that way. So you have people packing themselves in a room like sardine, 6, 7, 8, or trying to live in one room or something. These are what I got to know happening around China. I don't know if my position is wrong or correct, but this is my personal observation, and I give it. Thank you.
Now, if I'm trying to understand, like I said, people have different perspectives, but from my own point of view, if you're talking about buying an apartment, yes, the apartments are usually expensive in bigger cities. If you're in a small city, you could get an apartment for, let's say, 400,000 RMB. Now, it's not like 400,000 RMB is cheap, because the average salary in China, I mean, for Chinese people, I think minimum wage is around 3,000 RMB. And if you're making, let's say, 40,000, if you're making above 40,000 RMB, then you can say that you are maybe part of the upper class. Maybe you might be able to afford an apartment. Now, if you're making 40,000 RMB in a year, like how long would you be able to afford? And if you're making 40,000 RMB, you're probably in a bigger city. So you understand? Because that's in terms of buying. Now, in terms of rent.
Who did that? Who is it?
Hello? Now.
Go ahead. Please mute
Okay.
yourself, Mr. Kazi.
Okay. So if you're talking about like buying an apartment, like that's just the way it is. Like, before you can buy an apartment, that your business is really good. Because I mean, personally, I would expect the apartments to be cheaper than they are, because they are building every day. Even when like the ones they finish building, they've not even finished buying it. They keep building. So personally, I expect that the apartment should be cheaper than that, but I don't really know I don't know the economics of that. But generally, expensive cities, expensive houses. Now, in terms of rent, now I don't think Guangzhou is a good yardstick, because most people that are in Guangzhou, no, let me say most people, but a lot of people, and let me specifically talk about Nigerians and Black people. We are not like people that are in Guangzhou. Some of them don't have visas. Some of them are just there because they need to be there. Probably they are doing business for somebody else in Nigeria. So now, if you are doing that, you're probably not making a lot. If you don't have visa, you cannot register an apartment. So you have to probably go and stay with somebody that maybe one person out of 5 people now will be the one that has the visa that can register the apartments. Then the remaining 4 have to come and squat. Because if you are working here in China generally, because as foreigners, like the salary range that we get is actually more than Chinese people. Like, you can get more for doing less, or get more for doing the same thing that the Chinese person would do. and those salaries are usually enough to afford an apartment. Now, it depends on what you classify as, let's say, luxury, what you classify as okay or normal living. I think that is subjective, but you can get a very good apartment without having to work for Huawei. Now, if you're talking about buying, maybe you have to work for those big companies to be able to make enough money to be able to afford an apartment in terms of buying. But in terms of rent, they are quite, you could get, even in Guangzhou, okay, let's talk, like currently now, I'm in Shenzhen. I currently stay, let's say, 25 minutes, 30 minutes from the city center. Now, my rent is expensive, but relative to the city center is maybe just half. Now, if you are staying on the outskirts, you could actually get something like exactly what I'm staying at here for like half the price. So it just depends on the work you do, your income, and how much you make. But in terms of like maybe 6 people sharing an apartment, then you are probably not making anything. For that to be the case, you are probably not making anything, or well, yeah, that's it. As long as you are working in China, you are probably not making anything for you to be 6 people in an apartment. That's it.
I like to chime in something that you just said. For the most part, Nigerians, especially Nigerians, do not tell you the full picture of what they are doing and why they are subject to what they are subject to. So everywhere you go in the world, in the UK, there are many. The UK is less of it now because it's a smaller country. But any country that allows people to overstay their visa or anything, you will mostly find people disconnected from the system, but they will not be honest enough to tell you that, oh, this is why they are disenfranchised. For China now, you really should not be complaining that you don't have money, because there are many people that do agency work over there. They do procurement agents and all those things. And that business is cash-based. So if you're helping people buy gadgets, you're helping people buy fashion items in Shenzhen or in Guangzhou, and you're sending it home, you will make decent money. Why are you not staying in a good apartment? Sometimes it's also that the people you are talking to, if they are Nigerians, they have used all their money to service black tax. That this is a no holds barred conversation. So we are going to say it as it is. I've met people abroad that when you see them, they are always scrambling and everything. And when you get close to them, you see that they are servicing, they are trying to build one property in Nigeria. They will be living like rats abroad and building one estate or one block of flats in Nigeria. They will beg you for food, they will do this until you hear that, oh, that's so person every day they are always sending money to Nigeria every blessed day. So in the case of China, there is the trade aspect of China that is very significant, and many Nigerians participate in it. But in terms of real estate, if you cannot in Nigeria, that is your own country, wake up and decide to buy a house in Ikoyi, I don't expect that you would also decide to buy a house in Beijing or in Shenzhen. You should be realistic with yourself. I mean, the city center. At every point in time, you should be able to work and look for something that is commensurate. Just like you will not get to the UK in year 1 to 3 and you start to price house in Milton Keynes or in central London or in Canary Wharf. There has to be a measure of contentment that, oh, this is where you are at this time, this is what you can afford. And if you need to earn more or be able to afford bigger kinds of properties, then you need to level up, which is why you go back to school, you do trade and all those kind of things. But real estate everywhere is not cheap in the city center and in large cities. Then you go, it's when you go to the suburbs that you are able to afford larger properties at a lower cost all over the world.
Okay, thank you. Like that is just it. That is just it. And one thing I would always like to say, and I would just also put it out there, is like if you are trying to view China, I don't think you should necessarily view China from a perspective of Guangzhou, at least the major places that Black people do business, because that is skewed. A lot of the people that are doing the business, there's hardly ever like a full story to it. Like you never really know what exactly is going on. Some people will complain how bad it is, and just some people are probably black tax. Tax. They are doing stuffs at home, and they live from hand to mouth. But I think to have a better view of China, like there has to be perspectives from, let's say, other cities, especially Guangzhou. The reason why I keep emphasizing on Guangzhou is because, like, I stay in Shenzhen. Shenzhen is a 30 minutes ride to Guangzhou. I understand. I do business in Guangzhou, so I kind of get that idea of, like, okay, maybe people are squeezing together. People, and especially I talked about visa. That is, in fact, currently in Guangzhou now, they're actually cracking down on the visa situation. So if you don't have visa, you can't get an apartment without visa. Meaning you can actually have the means, but there's just that put you in that situation. So there's definitely more to the story, because there's no, I would categorically say, like, there's no way you are actually making money in China and can afford the house. Literally, like, you get an apartment for 500 RMB. 500 RMB, depending on the age. Well, like I said, everybody has their own different experiences. Before you are sitting in an apartment, then something must be wrong somewhere. That's like a small perspective. So you can take the next question, or like if there's anything further you want to say for the person that just talked about the real estate question.
Mr. Adeboye John, please proceed with your question. I see you have raised your hand.
Yeah, thank you very much. The question that I just want to ask is that I know I just want to compare the level of education over there compared to, not with Nigeria, with the likes of the UK, the US. At least if you are going to China, you know that, okay, at least I'm at par with those in the, especially in terms of engineering, the professional courses, engineering, the nursing aspect, because I have not really seen a lot of our students moving to China as to study courses like nursing. They migrate from there to places like UK or US. So I've not really seen that much. So even majority of those who traveled from here directly, I think there are more than those who travel from, or maybe who schooled from there and moved from China back to what was it called, maybe UK or US. My question is just at par with the current situation now. How do you rate their level of education and the practical aspect in terms of engineering? Is that in some school in UK, I think they have this masters with coursework, but not with thesis, with this attachment with companies and all that. You just get with practical work, not with you are not writing any form of thesis, or it's just purely practical masters and all that. So is there something like that over there also? That's my question.
Okay, so I also think that I'm in a very good position to answer your question, because my bachelor's, I did medicine here in China. Now, if you're talking medicine, I think this is profession based. For medicine now, okay, compared to the UK, and I mean, I did not school in the UK, so I don't really, but we're talking about levels. Actually, doctors actually moved from China to the UK. The problem with, let's say, doing medicine in China is that you don't necessarily get hands-on experience. I mean, you do, but not officially. Like, you can't, let's say, attend to a patient by yourself. But when I was doing my rotation, and now you could help in the surgery. You would, you could click a patient. You are going to do all of that just like you would anywhere else. But you don't get that, because first of all, there's a language barrier. Now, in terms of like the study itself, it also depends on the school you're in, because like the school I did my bachelor's, we had international teachers, like we had, people that actually wanted to do the work. Now, if you have Chinese teachers in maybe some schools, that because we are, let's say, in a small city now, there's a high chance you're probably just going to have Chinese teachers. I mean, I was lucky, I was in a small city and I had international teachers too, but you're probably going to have Chinese teachers. Now, if you have Chinese teachers in small cities, they probably don't understand English well enough. If they don't understand English well enough, they're probably not going to teach you as well as you would want. Like, it's not about you wanting as well as you would expect. Practical aspects. Yes, you're going to do the hospital rounds. You're going to see the patient. You help out in the surgery, obviously. The patient you are doing the surgery on is not conscious enough to know, but like officially, the patient will most likely not allow you if they were to know that you're going to help them. But in terms, that's for medicine now. And in terms of you saying maybe medical doctors don't go to the UK, a lot of them actually go to the UK because in China now, it is hard for you to actually get a job as a medical doctor if you are foreign trained. And one of the reasons for that, I mean, if you are trained in China as an international student, one of the reasons for that is that like their licensing exam is in Chinese. So, it's a different thing that you actually know your work, and it's different that you know enough Chinese. I mean, you can even know daily Chinese, but like knowing enough Chinese to actually write a medical exam. Now, when you even write and pass, getting a job, you understand? But like I said, different with different perspectives. Now, we are talking engineering now. Like the school, there's a school that I did masters in, even though like the masters that was is in business, but it's one of their like the best engineering schools in China currently. Now you actually get practicals. Like you see most of the things you see online in terms of, let's say, AI, like the machines, like there is enough of that. It is just dependent on your school, depending on your city, because the big cities will probably have big schools. Big schools will get big funding, and big funding will allow for bigger practicals. So I think it's cost dependent, it's school dependent, it's city dependent. Like there's a lot of factors that come into play if you're talking about like the level of education. What else did you say? Okay, now
He asked about practical or the practical masters or something like that.
Okay,
practical
yeah.
work experience.
Yeah, that's where I want to get to. Now, for that practical masters, the thing is that the ideal structure of masters in China is you do coursework, you do thesis. Now, within that period, you have access to do internships. Like, but then it is like some of them actually, like the schools will sponsor, let's say, workshops or where those companies will come. Like currently, like when I'm doing business, we actually used to have chances where like they get companies like Tencent, Insta360, like those big companies, because I'm in Shenzhen, they are going to come, they are going to interview you, and they are going to pick a couple of people. Like you have chances while you're doing your masters to do all of that, but then it is not a necessity, and it's just as a virtue of, let's say, being in so school that you get that chance, not that it is an aspect of the work. You understand? And well, not to mince words, like I said, those internships are usually hard for us Black people than Nigerians. Like I think a lot of us would understand that, but you can actually get it. You can do it well, because immediately you finish your coursework in the first year, you actually have maybe the next 2 years of your distance is probably just thesis, and during that you can officially work for a company, get more insights, get all of that. But genuinely speaking, those internships are difficult because you're also competing with Chinese students. And like I said earlier in my introductory talk, they would always want Chinese students that are also trying to get that job. But is that to say that you cannot? Definitely not. So you can definitely get those internships. But like I said, it's always dependent on the type of school you go to. That is why you have to pay attention. Small cities probably don't have good enough schools. And if the schools are not good enough, you hardly get those chances of getting big companies trying to engage, trying to poach, trying to get, because I think it's just rule of thumb. You assume that people going to big schools, people going to good schools are the best of the best. And the big companies, that is what they want. So if that's something you're aiming at, trying to work for any of these big companies, you have to aim at a very good school. That is
I like to add something. I like to add something here. I think that people should also understand that China is the size of Africa for scope's sake, so that you understand what you are dealing with. This is not Nigeria, and specific courses are best studied in certain places. So if you are trying to study something in tech, you are most likely going to look out for. It's just like you guys get to tech in the US. you should look out to schools in California, Texas, Florida. If you are trying to get into financial services in the US, look out for New York, look out for California to a great degree. Industrials, it is still Texas. If you're trying to get into something that is public sector, government, you look towards Washington, D.C. and those other low-key states. The same thing with China. There are certain courses that are best studied in certain parts of China because they already have an ecosystem there. So if you are studying close to Shenzhen now, then I will think that you pick the best of schools that you can get into in Shenzhen because there is an ecosystem. And that's what makes China different and better than the UK. There is an actual ecosystem for you to get into. For example, in technology. If you're trying to study something that has to do with agriculture, then you should go to Qunan and those places where they have an existing agriculture ecosystem where they produce a lot of food. If you're trying to get into naval stuff and certain environmental stuff, then there's a part of China where they do a lot of seafaring, maritime studies. The naval institutions are also there. So it's not, China is not, even in Nigeria, our University of, our water resources or our Petroleum Studies Institute, PTI, is where it's in Delta State. Why is it in Delta State? Because there's an oil and gas ecosystem there. IPS, one of the finest master's degree program in petroleum studies, is in Port Harcourt. Why? Because it was founded by oil companies who have an ecosystem there already. So as you try to make your decisions, STEM is great in China, but you need to drill down to where the ecosystem is thriving the most, because you are now going to be one amongst many. You can, there are 50 companies around. If you go get to let's use technology as an example, IT, for example. If you don't get to the Huawei's, you can get to the HIK Visions. You can get to, there are so many technology companies that most people don't even know their name, but they do so much. If you get employed in DJI now, you tell your mother that you're working for DJI, she may not know what DJI is. Until you tell a photographer that you're working for DJI, and they're like, wow, you're working for the world's biggest drone companies. So that's how you analyze these things, so that you don't go and be chasing, oh, my friend is here, so I'm going here. Ask yourself the kind of courses that you want to study, then look at where there is an ecosystem of those courses, then go there, instead of just being random about it. I hope that addresses your question. But in terms of practicals, you would get a lot of practical experience if you go that way. There will be manufacturers of the equipment that you're going to use. You can, then wake up and do something by yourself. Nobody's going to come and feed you anything anywhere in the world anyways.
Yeah, and that last point you made, like, it is a conscious decision. Like, the way China works, or at least to my own personal experience in China, is you most likely get what you want, depending on how much effort you put into it. If maybe you don't communicate to your supervisors often, you don't expect the supervisor to call you when there's an opportunity. So that's just what it works. And like you said, and like I said, it's very dependent. Like, you don't just pick, oh, I'm going to China. Except, like, tunnel vision, you need to know what you want, then work in that direction, not just on a general, okay, well, let me study abroad. Let me just come and study in China. Like, you get schools. Like, schools is that's the smallest thing. But in terms of, like, opportunities, okay, is there a chance? Okay, do I want to work with shipping companies? Do I want to work with these big tech companies? Now, that is where the work is. And you just need to put in enough effort, and you have to stand out. Because now, when you're talking about those tech companies now, you're not only competing with international people, you're also competing with Chinese people. So you just need you have to be exceptional and, put in enough work. And, well, China is here to give you whatever you want. So that is my own point of view on that too. And do you have a further question, or like need further clarification regarding that? Hello.
I'm very much okay with the explanation. It's okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Other things will be done through the follow-up. I'll shout you up directly. Though I'm asking on behalf of some of my students who have been disturbing me about it, but I'll shout you up for further clarification.
I know that. Okay, so I'll provide a bit of context to your own situation because I mean I know you. There are hubs in China where they do a lot of mineral processing, mining equipment, exploration and exploitation equipment, beneficiation and all those things. You want to pick schools around those areas than schools in Shenzhen, for example. So you look out for where companies like Sunny, companies like Zoom Lion, companies like all these guys that make heavy equipment. You look out for where there's a lot of mining companies and where those mining equipments are produced and go study around those areas because that puts you around the value chain. There are places, there's an entire city in China where they make shoes. So if you want to learn how to make shoes, for example, then you just look for a good school in that area. Whether they give you the access or they don't give you the access, just by being in that city, you can start trading with them. You can, your curiosity then becomes your currency, where you go from door to door and you knock and you say, oh, I'd like to be a part of this. And then because you're also not a Mumu, you'll be able to have conversations in that direction. So if you are a mining professional or a geosciences professional, look out for cities where there's a lot of mining activity. China has a lot of critical minerals processing industries. Where are those critical mineral processing industries? Map them down and go after schools in those areas. Do your research. We're in the age of AI. You can use AI to simplify some form of AI tools to simplify some of these things. Where are the best heavy industry companies located? Rare earth minerals processing companies, where are they located? Industrial minerals processing, where are they located? Then you triangulate for the schools in those places because they will first look out for candidates in those schools before they fly across and go to Xinhua or to Peking or any other globally branded school. Mr. Adeniyi John, I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Very well, very well, very well. I'm with you.
So it's not like Nigeria. Even in Nigeria, all schools are not the same thing. If you want to study architecture in Nigeria, there are 4 top schools of architecture in Nigeria. If you don't go to any of those schools, and one of them is because it's in Lagos. University of Lagos, for example, is a very good school of architecture because it is in Lagos. So same thing with the petroleum example I used the other time.
Okay, so are there any more questions? Specifically, if there's anything you need more clarification on. And since we are talking in the education direction more, I mean, I was expecting I would get maybe questions on, let's say, business, because I think that's also vital. And even if you're trying to study, I think that is something that is critical because, like as someone said earlier, in terms of people squatting together, I think people would not want that to be their own situation. So I would always advise, China is a very big place, and you can really do whatever you want. No, not that you can do whatever you want, but you can achieve whatever you want to achieve being in China. Meaning, if even you're trying to study, and let's say there's this business that you've been thinking about, that, oh, I want to do this, and maybe you don't have the chance or the opportunity to do it in China. Nigeria, China is a land of opportunities. And I would always advise, if you're coming here to do masters or study or whatever, yes, you need to focus on your academics and all of that. But at the end of the day, too, you're also trying to, build a life, and that is something that should always be at one's mind, as long as you are interested in the business aspect of things too, because I understand that some people they're okay with just normal work, but I think business is essential, and I can speak from experience and people that have been around. And yeah, so I mean, I would like, if there's anybody that wants to ask anything about business, I would also like to like let us have a conversation about that too. Okay, so if there is no question, my number has been dropped in the comment section. Yeah, so for further follow-up requirements, just any follow-up question on the aspects that we've talked about today, you can contact me, and I would try to get to the best of my knowledge. And I hope that with this interaction, I hope that at least some of us have picked one thing or two in terms of China generally. Like, I will keep emphasizing, China is the land of opportunities. China is the next best thing, or probably the best thing in the moment. China is affordable compared to other countries. Accommodation, feeding, all of that. It is good. It is very, very, very affordable compared to the UK or any of those countries. And there's a community here. It is something I would recommend. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for having me too.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Solarin Adeniyi. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your expertise, your knowledge with us. And yeah, with that, we've come to the end of the session. Like he said earlier, you can feel free to reach out to him either on WhatsApp or via Gmail if you have any.
Yes, we still require his contact. Okay, well, I can reach out to Mr. Funcho anyway.
Oh, it's in the chat box, sir. If you
I'm
can
sure
check. Okay, if you can't see it, then yeah, perhaps you could just reach out to Mr. Funcho at this time. Okay. Do you have a question, Mr. Israel? You can feel free
Hello.
to speak if you have a question.
Hello. Good
Yeah,
evening.
go ahead. Go ahead. Good evening, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, for
Can you hear me?
thank you very much, sir, for educating us on what you just said. I really appreciate very much, sir. So that's what I want to just say.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Israel. Mr. Ayola Fatai, I think you were speaking, sir. Do you have a question, sir?
No,
I don't have a question.
Mr. Fasta Shodunke, please speak. I see you were raising your hands.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening. I don't know if we can have this recorded section. I joined in very late, almost when you are appreciating everybody for joining. So I'll send the contact. I will also take it up from there if I can get the recorded section of this webinar, so that if you have any interest and inquiries, we can be able to meet with you. Thank you very much.
Please drop your email if you would like to be kept in touch. We'll circulate the recording and put maybe like a comment in the recording, which will include his contact. So do well to drop your email. Do as much as possible. I don't want anybody to chat me privately about this, because it then increases the amount of work I have to do for something that can be done in bulk as a whole. So drop your email address if you like to be kept updated with the recording one, and then the facilitator's contacts. Thank you.
Yeah, I've dropped my email, so you can pick it up from there. Thank you very much. For sure.
Okay, so Mr. Kazim, do you have a question? Or you answer that you hand first?
Yes, I do. I asked before, but I wanted to give others opportunity to ask. Okay, so let me just ask on a line. First, I want to appreciate you again, just like others have appreciated this great effort from the organizers and the speaker. So I got speaking with somebody from Bangladesh, is school in China, while I was there, and he also advised that I can send my kids to China for schooling, not really about the scholarship. So if they want to come for regular BSc and all that, can you just give us an idea of the cost and how easy is it for us to apply and to be, for them to get admission and the flexibility of the requirement and all that, or simplicity of the requirement? Thank you.
Oh, okay. BSc. It's just like I said earlier, you just need to apply early enough because it actually takes some time before the admission letter, the documentation, and all of that. And BSc usually it starts in September. In terms of fees, it depends on the school. Generally, is between 15,000 RMB to I think 35,000-40,000, depending on the school and the course. And the requirements, I would have to send the requirements like to you personally if you reach out to me. There's actually scholarships. There's usually in-school scholarships and there's still government scholarships for BSc, but that is solely dependent on, speaking plainly, it's solely dependent on if the school likes you and your academic performance. But I think if they like you more, you probably have a higher chance of getting the school scholarships than even your academic performance. So for bachelors, yeah, there's usually in scholarships. Sometimes usually the entirety of the school fees or maybe half of it, but there's still scholarships in BSc. The fees usually ranges from 15,000 to around 40,000 RMB. As for the requirements, I'll have to send that personally. And as long as it's for this year, let's say September this year, you need to start applying by now so that by June, July, you would already have all the documents and it's just to get your visa. But up until recently, they've started doing another exam. Before, they did not used to do exam. You just submit your documents and they just go through it and get your admission letter and all of that. But now you're also required to write an exam. But I don't know if all the schools have started doing that, but I am very certain that there are now exams in place before you can do BSc. So that is pretty much it. I personally, part of what I do is admissions. So we can talk personally to get more details on that, the courses and the schools. Mr. Kazim.
Thank you very much. I'll reach out to you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. So if there is no other question, I want to use this opportunity to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity and giving us this chance to, to converse and get insights. Insight that maybe you would not directly get from the internet because this is just how it is. And I thank them and I thank you all for paying attention and listening to what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Just a general comment for all. I also want to agree completely. China is way above a lot of the Western world. But the information are just underreported, and there's a lot of opportunity in China. I think you can reach out to him, and there's a lot of opportunity I must see. And I saw that comparing to other places that I've been to in the world, in the West, and I saw that China is way ahead of a lot of them. So let's see how we can tap this opportunity and take it to the next level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sirs. Thank you, Mr. Solarin. And I think with that, we can bring the meeting to a close. Thank you all and have a lovely day. Goodbye. The recording will be sent to those of you that sent your emails. The recording will be sent, and Mr. Sholarin's contact will also be sent to you via email. Thank you, and good night once again.